sure that there's a burning in the books if that's true. But in any case, they don't want people gathering in groups. That's why they don't allow freedom of assembly. You have a big group, they don't wait for any trouble. They cause the trouble, or they get agent provocateurs to serve as the excuse and say, oh, they started trouble, when it's actually the secret police stirring up trouble to have an excuse to not let people get together and talk or agree on anything. And they're really afraid of this new science of intention. It's amazing. By focusing intention, wow, I've heard some amazing things, even changing pre-recorded tapes and all kinds of stuff. Incredible science fiction type stuff. So what's that in the Bible? It said, wherever two or more gather in my name, three or more, two or more, whatever, there am I also. And these guys are terrified of that. They don't even like 3-day holidays. They incorporated a bunch of the holidays so there's not a bunch of 3-day weekends into one President's Day. Now they even want to split off Memorial Day to a separate day during the middle of the week, so it doesn't allow people time to a 3-day weekend. 3 day, geez, so they can find a way to keep people from having 2 days in a row off. That's dangerous. They might talk. They might share information. They're supposed to go to the friggin' news media, treasonous bastards, to get that information, right? Geez, what would happen to Das New World Order, Sikael? I mean, it's threatening the whole fucking bloody dictatorship and mass executions and genocide that these guys, evil SOBs, man. Okay, any rate, let me, like Koresh, he did a double whammy. He was teaching about Revelations, the 7 seals. The Catholic Church's rule, apparently when they meet in airlocks underneath the North Pole before it unthawed, when George Bush Sr., the Pope, John Paul II, who was actually the Nazi scientist who developed cyanide gas for the Nazis, who hid in the Vatican under manslayer, and the Pope just ahead of him, the smiling Pope, died very shortly after being in office, and then the poison specialist becomes God of the world. And the problem is a lot of the Catholics are raised since childhood, from infancy, to believe that this Nazi heinous child molester, murdering popes appointed by other corrupt SOBs is a God of the world. They'll do anything for the Pope, is God of the world, a holy man. Nazi, say Kyle. Unbelievable. I think the reason why they chose a black man to sabotage the whole thing, the CIA did, and of course the Bilderbergs and all, but was because I think they really would like, they're afraid of the whites and the blacks, who are more alike than any other two peoples. Is black and whites are more alike than any other two races. They've got all the illegals coming across the border that'll do anything blindly, thinking they're obeying God's orders. And they're afraid they want to divide the blacks and whites so they can't defend themselves against the hordes coming across the border when the Pope Nazi gives the order. Really, World War II Nazis, folks. Unbelievable. Well, listen up.
We have this Breitbart situation.
Koresh, by the way, besides teaching on the 7 seals, but the churches are forbidden these days from teaching on Revelations. They don't want people to know we're already in it. They want to discredit the Bible altogether, and they don't want expectation because they figured that might trigger something too. But Koresh had revealed that our Secretary of the Treasury, Lloyd Bentsen, had a huge illegal amphetamine production ring. He didn't say anything about George Bush and Jay Rockefeller, Senator Jay Rockefeller, and George Bush, Jay Rockefeller, and Bill Clinton had a huge cocaine cartel, plus over 600 people murdered who are going to testify before Congress. Never got in the press, of course. So it never happened. I mean, if they don't tell you, you don't know. But, I mean, they poured gasoline down the women and children's bunker and set fire to it and parked a tank over the door so they couldn't get out. Before that, they were driving back and forth on tanks, non-English-speaking German soldiers of Finsen and whatnot, pulling their pants down and hanging BAs at women and children as they played loudspeakers day and night of rabbits screaming and being tortured. They used CS gas that's illegal to use even in warfare, radioactive gas that totally contorted the bodies. When they tried to escape through a break where one of the tanks knocked the compound off its foundations, they had machine gunned people that tried to get out there and bulldoze their bodies back. The British had pictures of that from a reconnaissance plane that I delivered to when before he was tortured to death on orders of George Bush Sr. with extreme prejudice, one of the leading intelligence officers of this country. I handed that tape for the British to them, but I don't know how much of that became public. But anyway.
The timing looks extraordinarily questionable. What's your take on all of this?
When they came in my church, right after my pastor announced his candidacy for President of the United States, all the Jesuit moles on his staff, as they are, I would say most any large church has them on his staff, they keep an eye out, and anytime it looks like they might try to run for public office or something, they call in linking organizations of multinational cops, Interpol, International Police, German FinCEN secret police, KGB, which still exists, by the way, even though it supposedly doesn't. But Pastor Greg Dixon, they got them to do a sit-down strike inside the church. They faked him out about it being about taxes. They really just wanted to kill him off. They locked him in there, cut off food and water, and shot at him when they tried to escape. But of course, that in most people's minds, that didn't happen. It can't happen here because the press didn't report it. That was why the media had to be the first organization to be completely taken over. And Coast to Coast AM is one of the few free sources of media, as is Alex Jones and the prior recording I played.
We have this Breitbart situation. The timing looks extraordinarily questionable. What's your take on all of this?
Well, all of the big establishment publications have come out in the last 2 days and attacked myself and others who simply point out, okay, you've got a guy who says on record, I'm going to release video of Obama in communist meetings calling for the overthrow of America March 1st. I'm going to release video that will destroy Obama. Now, folks, I'm not left-wing or right-wing when it comes to these politicians. They're all puppets at that level. But I cover facts, and Breitbart was saying he would release this information March 1st. He's on record. And then he dies after going to a bar in his neighborhood and hanging out at a table with a whole bunch of different people. And then within 2 hours we hear, oh, it's a natural cause of death, but no facts. Now the coroner has come out and said, no, it'll take 6 weeks to find out. We're doing an autopsy. We've got to test all the different chemicals. So the fact that we were told that he died and that it was totally normal and natural within 2 hours of his death, that's a big sign that this was some type of staged event. And look, I remember a couple of years ago, newspapers came out with a enemies list of Obama. And I knew that Breitbart, Matt Drudge, Rush Limbaugh, myself were on that list. You're like, oh, whatever, it's just a list. But now you see this happen. It's very, very creepy. And look, I hope it's not true. Maybe, unfortunately, well, I'm glad you mentioned the National Defense Authorization Act, because if you have a president who demands of Congress they add to the defense bill that the president has the power to secretly arrest citizens, secretly kill them, secretly torture them, that's all admitted now. And Obama, when he got caught pushing it, said, well, I'm going to veto it, but then, of course, he didn't veto it. So this is a president who wants the power to use black op teams, assassination teams, to kill American citizens. And now he's saying to the world that he has this power, and then somebody like Andrew Breitbart, who's threatening to bring down the president and his group of cohorts, dies, you would be a fool to not say, wait, you want the power to kill American citizens extrajudicially, secretly, now American citizens are dying. We'd be crazy to not say, hey, you're a prime suspect. So it's that simple. And Breitbart had information that he said would bring down Obama, and he died. And whether he had heart problems or not, it's got to be looked at. I mean, that's common sense. People who say we're crazy to question this, well, they're crazy. I mean, you've openly got a system saying it'll kill U.S. citizens wherever and whenever it wants, and the most prominent alternative journalist out there who's brought down big city machines, organizations like Acorn, tens of millions of dollars a year that are lost to these individuals. You know, I don't just say that Obama's the prime suspect. All of these groups that were living off of the government largesse, off the government trough, all these groups that stand to gain from it, they're all suspects to what happened to Andrew Breitbart. And we'd be crazy not to look at it.
Okay, folks. If something happens and you need a president, anyone that does what needs to be done will be killed very quickly. But I've dedicated my life to doing that and to having the right people and to doing it very quickly if Ron Paul cannot be put in. Be back in the first Friday of every month. God bless.